The Stargate is probably the television's greatest on-screen prop imaginable, because you can, go through that thing and you're only going to be limited by your imagination. And we had a whole group of creative people, writers and producers, who kind of started stretching their wings a little bit, spreading their wings creatively, and developed a lot of stories around the mythology of ancient Egypt, etc., etc. You know more about this than I do, but there's just great potential there. I just wanted to do something interesting after we got to it.
And that opening that mythology up to be able to bring in great characters like Tony. And Tony, talk a little bit about when they're bringing you onto the project as well, because it was actually set up to be a recurring character over the life of the series, if I remember correctly.
No. Actually, Richard probably would tell you. Anytime, generally, when they tell you something is going to be recurring, they're trying to get you cheaper. But no, and they did not tell me it was going to be recurring, but it seemed to work. It seemed to make sense. The character. It's funny, I'm doing a series now called Continuum. Yeah! And what was funny about it is Jeff King was the writer, was one of the writers on the episode where they introduced Braytac, and I always thought, how did I get this audition? You always wonder it seemed like they were going out of the way to have me audition, and then you go on IMDb and you realize, okay, there's Brad, there's Jonathan, Jeff King, but Stargate was attractive to me because we all remember Chariots of the Gods. You remember that book where they tie in sort of Egyptian mythology and Egyptian civilization into a kind of alien and so that I thought, well, how wonderful, and then I found Richard was on, and I thought, well, that's fun, and it just seemed to fall into place, and we never had that discussion. Oh, you will be coming back. They just kept writing, and I was thrilled, and
just how cheap did we get you?
Anytime I do one of these, one of the fans' favorite moments in the thing, in Maternal Instinct, where I come in and I'm sort of in a big helmet, and you guys have been trapped, and you stand up, and I proceed to give you like a forearm to the head. And fans just love that moment. Now, why is that?
It's funny.
Yeah, why is that?
Well, obviously they like seeing you get beat up, Richard. That's got to be what it is.
I'm not so adverse to it myself.
You're on a set, and all of a sudden everything, for my character, my connection to the whole thing was based on Chris. And so everything is dependent on that actor, and yet, you arrive 2 minutes before and you're supposed to create this life. And I remember asking, who's playing Tilt, and they pointed them out. We went up and I introduced myself, and I sort of just looked at him and he looked at me, and we knew it was going to be fun. And it just sort of fell in very easily. So he was great to work with, and he's a hoot. I don't know what else to say.
That's one word for him. He used to fart a lot. He and I had a running kind of competition. Was that going to be your question about that? No.
Thank you.
But it's an apt comment by Tony about whether it's before or after lunch, because Chris and I would just be dueling buttholes after lunch. It's quite disgusting. And are there children in here? All right, kids, you'll learn about this stuff eventually.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sure.
I have to be honest with you, I don't know what you're talking about.
Richard, as delicately as I can put it.
Oh, we're gay. Yeah, the characters are gay. Was that a question?
Pretty much.
I figured it out. Now that was the first question in Calgary. We were both sitting on stage, that big, huge, it was a hockey stadium. And the first question was about that. you know, actually asked more delicately than you. But both he and I knew exactly what she was talking about. We almost simultaneously said, "Oh, it's a gay thing." We tried to keep it quiet, but apparently we were too flaming for
I have to say, I've missed this. I have to check this out.
It was C-text.
Be afraid, Tony. Be very afraid.
I don't know. The problem with that question is that I was never really keenly aware of how prankstery I was appearing to be. It was just normal behavior for me. Which is a sad commentary on my parental upbringing, societal influences, education, and my general attitude, I guess. No, seriously, I was never a prankster. I mean, I didn't know how to set up, you know, a prank. And, but it was all spontaneous kind of misbehavior. Actually, it was Michael Shanks' wife. That's right.
Were they married? I don't know if
No,
were they married?
girlfriend.
They were.
Really? How do you know? But anyway, I think
It's on the internet.
I kind of assessed it as Showtime wanting to get the attention of the general populace, get an audience stirred up one way or the other. You know, there's a fair amount of genius involved with it, but it's also in poor taste, I think, to some degree, but what's new with that? So I really do think they just show the nakedness of a woman to get people talking about the show. After that, we were still on Showtime, but it cooled down, I think. Didn't it?
It's sort of like sex on Game of Thrones. Have you noticed? I mean, every so often Game of Thrones, they just throw in like a random sex thing. I like Game of Thrones, but they just sort of throw it in exactly for your reasons. Like, okay, we'll go along. Okay, we need some nudity now.
There's a quota they have to fill.
Yeah, it's